Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Wild Portishead Live. And we will be joined.
Since last night, Jonathan.
Sorry, well, I know.
We're permanent fixtures here now.
Well, I was going to say, we don't do one for ages. And then we're suddenly, we started doing them monthly. But because of this election, then we've been doing them more regularly as and when the candidates for the area have been available. So, and we will be joined tonight, everybody, by Ashley Cartman of the Lib Dems. So we're looking forward to speaking to him tonight. Chris, we'll do a bit about the rewilding book at the end of the show, shall we? Your book that you've contributed to.
Well, yeah. You don't have to do that tonight. How did you get on with your brambles?
Right. For those who didn't know, my sunflowers took a pounding the other night, despite the fact that they're sat on a gravel base, and they almost half of them got munched in the night. So what I did as a test was I've lined the base of the plants with chopped up bramble branches, and also used a bramble branch as a support. But I wasn't going to sacrifice one of my precious sunflowers. So what I did was took some of the pots. I had two pots out front, one with the supposedly slug repellent copper tape on it, and the other one I left bare. And I put into them remnants of some salad leaves just to see what would happen. Next morning, the salad leaves had been decimated. Now, if we zoom in there, you can see the mucus of a mollusk that has got through that barrier that I've put there. So at Chris's suggestion, I set up a trail cam to see what was going on during the night. And there's the trail cam. You can see to the left the pot that's got the copper tape on it. And if we zoom in, we can see a snail has gone over the supposedly snail repelling copper tape, has gone over my barbed wire of bramble sticks, and has helped itself to some salad. But Chris, it gets better, because within a few minutes of all this happening, who should come bumbling through the scene but a hedgehog?
Nature-based solutions.
But he's not eating enough slugs and snails for my liking.
You're giving him too much food.
I'm not giving him any food at the moment. I'm giving them water, but I've deliberately, for the last month, not given them any food. So anyway, what I've now done is that I've moved the surviving sunflower plants indoors, and so worth the experiment. But what it has taught me is that copper tape that you can buy doesn't do a thing. It really doesn't.
Slugs and snails 3, Jonathan Mock 0.
Yep. I'm on a losing streak here.
Yes, that for us.
Yeah. Anyway, citizen science, though, Chris.
It was very good. Very good.
Yeah. And of course, the one thing I'm not going to be using is I'm not going to go anywhere near slug pellets. It's not. We don't do that. No. Anyway, shall we crack on, and we'll introduce our guest for tonight, and it is the prospective Liberal Democrat candidate for the North Somerset ward, Ashley Cartman. How are you doing, Ashley?
I'm good, thank you, Jonathan. How are you?
We're fine.
Brilliant. Okay, Ashley, same question as everyone else has had, so we'll start with that, and obviously we can go off in any direction that you want to, but what I think it would be really interesting to know is, what do you think is really special about the natural environment in North Somerset? And should you be elected, what is it that you would do in order to either protect it, enhance it, or whatever? Over to you.
Okay. Well, I think for me, it's about all the variety of it. Because, I've got dogs. I'm always out walking around the constituency, and you can go from some of my favourite spots where at the moment I'm up in Ashton Court looking where the skylarks in the second lander side, or in Borton Combe and Godman Combe. I like to go there in the spring before, the tree cover comes in and you can see all the bluebells and the wild garlic. And then later on in the summer, it's normally heading out onto the moors or even onto the coast path. So I think it's that kind of variety that's what I really love about it. And I think it gives us some kind of challenges, doesn't it? Because also we've got Greenbelt, we've got Bristol wanting to sprawl down to us, and we've got a lot of low-lying land, which includes floodplains as well. So that gives us a tremendous amount of variety for different kind of flora and fauna and species and the rest of it. And of course, you've got the tidal range on the Severn as well, and the River Avon. So that's kind of huge. That gives us quite a unique set of challenges, I think, when we think about all the people as well that live here and how we manage to fit everything in, people and nature. So what was the follow-on? The follow-on was, what would I do? Was that right?
What would you do to enhance it, protect it? What is it that you would
Yeah,
bring?
so I think
about bringing.
Yes, I think for me, one of the first things that I would do is I'd knock on the door of Wessex Water, because I think when you look at the sewage overflows that we've got, and we've got some in Portishead as well, and the number of times that they're spilling, into our main drainage, it's just horrendous, and we need to get that sorted really quickly. And it trebled across North Somerset between 22 and 23, and I'm not seeing the action that I'd like to see to kind of sort that out. And I think there's an element of working with people like Wessex, but there's also an element of calling them out and making them ashamed of what's been going on. So I think that would be one of my first things. I think the other thing we've got to think about is how we use our low-lying land, including kind of floodplains as well, in terms of what we do with them, both for the sake of ourselves, in terms of the flood risk, because we've got, with rising sea levels, it's somewhere between 30 and a 45 centimetre rise in the sea level for kind of Clevedon and the River Avon over the next kind of 30 years.
Yeah,
we've got to start thinking about, both the protection, but also as the adaptation. And I think one thing on my list is to go down to Steert as well. I don't know if you've been down there in terms of what they've done on the moorland down there. I mean, it's only 2 or 3 miles from where I grew up, so I'm ashamed to say I've not been down yet. And we need to be thinking about how we utilize our moorlands in terms of having them as ways in which we adapt to kind of climate change, but also use it like they've done at Steert to build better kind of nature reserves that we can all kind of love and enjoy.
So a kind of nature reserve, which also incorporates that if we get excessive amounts of rainfall, there's storage facilities as well as carbon capture.
Yeah, I mean, they're great on so many different levels, aren't they? And people just love them, and they're very effective at carbon capture as well. So, I mean, I remember, growing up, when I grew up on the Somerset levels, down by Barrow and stuff like that. I mean, it was quite common that the whole thing would just kind of flood some years. And the Environment Agency, or the rivers, national rivers as it was then, would use it as the way to put the water, because it had to go somewhere. The trouble is we've got so much more water now, it seems, and the water patterns are changing, and we've got more development, and it's, we haven't been investing. So
I'm glad you've mentioned Sturt, because that was, I can't remember, Chris, did I mention that the other night, or was it something I was going to mention, is about how that's effectively, it's a new nature reserve that's been created on the Bridgewater coastline, but it has been created specifically to safeguard the areas around there by encouraging and almost trying to control floodwater by letting that part of the coast deliberately flood, so that it's taking the pressure off other areas as well. And I went down there, goodness me, I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago. It's absolutely stunning down there. It's a place, Chris, it's a place I think you and I should have a trip down to visit.
I've been there. I've been there a few times. I was down there actually on duty as part of my work, chatting to the people down there from the Wildfowl and Wetlands Trust. Very, very friendly people, and they were showing me some of the new species that they've got. The habitat creation down there, in terms of the nature, is still very much ongoing. It's an ongoing thing, and that's how nature works. So, but the new species that are coming in are very, very exciting indeed, and it just shows you what you can do when, for example, so say our backs are up against the wall, we need to put this water somewhere. We do that, and hey presto, nature goes, yeah, give me a bit of that and I'll sort it out for you.
Yeah.
That's it. It's a simple thing to do, but presumably, Ash, that costs money in order to set up in the first place. A lot of money, I would presume.
Yeah, it costs a fortune. I can't remember the figure for the steer site, but it was millions, wasn't it? It was a lot of money. But I think it's a false economy to talk about the cost, because I think, I've got a bit of a personal kind of story on this, because my sister owned a house on the levels down near somewhere called Longload, and if you remember, it was flooded about 10 years ago down there, and her house was flooded and she lost her house effectively. And so I think, although it is costly, it's a false economy not to invest in a strange way. Why wouldn't we do this? It just builds up bigger cost in the future. So I think we've got to invest, really, in the same way you save for a pension. We need to save for our natural future as well as our financial future.
If let's bring things back to somewhere like Portishead, because for example, it's often said that we get more road flooding now than we used to. Particularly, I'm thinking, Jonathan, here of around Lipgate Place and Bristol Road.
Yeah, I was just going to say round by Gordano School and just round there.
It rains, it seems to flood there, and the blame goes on the amount of development that's higher up, because the water comes off faster, so to speak. You know any background into that? And so obviously, if we've got urban areas which are expanding, so if we're putting tarmac and concrete down, that water is just going zoop straight off. Is there any way that we can think about where we develop?
Yeah, so I think, there's kind of a couple aspects to that, aren't there? I think you are right, because the pattern of rainfall, we all know the pattern of rainfall's changing, in that we're going to get more intense rain, we're going to get wetter winters and drier summers. So that gives us a problem. When it comes down, it comes down quicker, and therefore we've got that. I know down there, there's historic problems down there as well on the pitches, aren't there, the football pitches? And I think there's an ongoing dispute with some of the developers in terms of what they did and what they were supposed to do.
Oh, right.
That was done, I believe. And I know, the council's got a flood risk management strategy, you probably know, that they've been working on. The trouble is it doesn't kind of have the money. So I think when we look at how we develop in the future for homes, we've got to try and avoid low level land. And I do say low level land because you get different gradings of land.
Yep.
So you get floodplain, you obviously never build on, but there's kind of different levels of 1, 2, and 3 in terms of low lying land. So we need to be really careful about not only where we build, but then also kind of how we build. And there's been some interesting stuff around. I think there's a development in Backwell where they put and I can't remember the word now. What's the name of an accentuation pond or something? What's the word? Is that where it's kind of built ready for some kind of overflow of water to come, in the scenario where we get lots of water? That seems much more sensible to me. And, we should even be thinking about, should we be building houses that can recover quickly if they do get flooded? We don't want to be building on low level land anyway, but should we be extra cautious, if you like?
So that's not a flat no then to development on, let's say, to use your terminology, low lying land. That's a basic. If we do it, we have to put tremendous safeguards in.
Well, I don't like flat nosiness on anything. I think if I had to be pushed, it would be a flat no, right? It would be a flat no. But when you're in local politics or whatever, it's all trade-offs, right? So you'll say you might get a business that wants to set up, where are you going to put it? And then it's trade-offs. And I think understanding there's graduations and there's different levels and values of land and natural habitats, and some are more valuable than others. We have to do those trade-offs. But I think for me, the starting point has to be no, unless you really have a really strong case.
Yeah, and if we change subject completely, one of the things that I'm very keen on is, and obviously Jonathan is as well, is the fact that in this country, not only have we seen a massive drop off or die off of species, we've also seen the fact that the general public have started to lose access to nature. And I'll take that from an educational standpoint. So the young ones aren't getting it at school as much.
Yeah,
there was a plan which was knocking around, which I think nearly got through, which was for a GCE on GCSE in nature.
Yeah.
And how do we get people more involved with nature? How do we make that jump, if you like, to get them back enthused about it?
Well, I think they are enthused. I mean, I think the difference between my generation is and the generation of my kids, they are much more enthused and engaged with it. I think you're right. It's a part of an access thing, isn't it? You know, I know I've got chickens in my front garden, right? Because we've got, you know, we're quite lucky. We live on a corner plot. There's not much use, so we've got chickens there. And the amount of children that stop, because actually I don't think children get to see chickens. I mean, it sounds strange, but where would you see a chicken? When was the last time you saw a chicken, for example? So, and I think that's because we don't live in those type of communities anymore where children have accesses. You're more likely to see a cow and a hedgehog, strangely, than a chicken. So I think you're absolutely right. And the stuff, I mean, like the city farm movement, I used to live in St. Werburgh's, again, is great. And there are local farmers who will let you come and visit their farms. So I think there needs to be much more kind of outreach into the farming community and rural, what we call the more rural communities, if you like what I mean, that actually deal in nature. You know, and near me, we've got the Belmont estate that's doing absolutely loads on things like that as well. So I think there's lots going on, and perhaps not as, you know, I think the next generation, I have a lot of hope for them. I think they're a really good generation. They seem to have their heads screwed on right on so many different things.
I really hope that's true. I mean, the thing that certainly when, for example, there's wildlife events on or anything, they're not as well as attended as they used to be.
Right, okay.
And I just get this. I mean, it could be a societal thing whereby we've got lots of problems. We haven't got time for this. It could be as simple as that. But I notice when I go to lectures or when I'm doing a lecture, and I've been doing that for an awful long time now.
Yeah,
I'm still the youngest person there. How do we get this swell of younger people up to get involved with this? And not just get involved, but something I was saying the other night to one of the other candidates as well. What's so important about getting involved and giving them access and free access is the fact that we as conservationists, for example, there might be a site somewhere where we think it's special. And the last thing we should be doing is keeping people away from that. We should let them gain access to that.
Yeah.
And that, therefore, in 10 years' time, if somebody comes along and threatens that, everybody knows what it is that they're protecting, as opposed to saying, well, it was only you guys that went there. It's nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
So those are the type of things that I face continually. The other big thing is the fact that now there are, if you're taking your family, for example, I don't know if you've done this, Ash, but if you take your family for a day out in the Forest of Dean, it now costs you quite a bit of money to park.
Or, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Or you get told by forestry you can forego all that payment if you join us for £90 odd a year. Now, to me, if you bring in the cost of living crisis and you're taking people, for example, in the middle of the city that want to go to the Forest of Dean, that's costing them a lot of money.
Well, it is, yeah. I know. I mean, what I agree. I mean, I'm a big fan. I grew up in the countryside, so I'm a big fan of having easy access to it. So one of the things that, you know, I did when I got elected, I was, you know, you get to push a few personal projects as a councillor, and one of the ones was putting money into footpaths, actually, because I'm a big fan of just making footpaths usable, easily signposted. You know, and we put a couple £100,000 into replacing some of the old-fashioned styles which used to take your life into your hands, climbing over them a bit, with proper gates. And then starting to think about how we made some footpaths even more accessible for almost people in wheelchairs as well, and those who found it hard to walk, to try and get people into nature a lot easier. Because, you know, particularly as you get older, and if you're unsteady on your feet, you might love walking, but you might not want to go down, you know, some of the footpaths that I go down where you have to put your walking boots on and you have to scrabble around a bit.
Yeah.
So to keep people kind of engaged with it. I think, I don't know why people don't go. It's really sad. Whether they feel it's a bit political. I mean, I've noticed over the last, for this election, actually, I think people are holding their views back slightly more. I think we're going into an age where people are nervous of exchanging their views, and I wonder whether this whole debate's been politicized a bit, where it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
For me, it's a dead practical thing. We should be doing this.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. Why do you think they're not engaging?
There was a few months ago quite a good national debate going on via social media about the almost depletion of nature and how it coincides or runs alongside of this fact that we've failed to get people engaged. And there are some, don't get me wrong, folks out there watching this, there are some brilliant, absolutely brilliant projects going on, but we need more of it. And what we also need is not to make nature cost. It should be, I think, nature should be free at the point of usage, so to speak. And especially when it's a government organisation that's charging a membership to which we're already paying our tax money to. It's just absolutely bizarre. And, you know, people like that are already making money off the fact that they have concerts in the middle of forests. They have their cafes everywhere. And it just seems to me to be right at the time when, in all honesty, you know, this government actually put a lot of effort into getting people back out into nature, and at the same time, it's being charged for, and you just go, no.
I think the other thing, Chris, is that we were Ashley was talking about putting more money into paths and getting people out walking. NHS has been very big on the benefits of getting people out there, of exercise, of walking, of taking the strain off the NHS through having a fitter, a fitter populace. And one of the great ways of doing that is if people are going for walks and they are able to combine that walk with nature. You've also got the I don't want to kind of sound a bit hippy dippy here, but you've also got the healing benefits that nature can bring. I think that's Chris. I think there have been studies that showed that access to nature does actually improve people's mental well-being
and physical well-being. Yeah, it's all well documented. I think it was a group of health centres in Scotland which were the first under mental health to be able to prescribe nature, not the cure by any means, but as a way of helping. And if you think back to the beginning of Wild Portishead, Jonathan, we both approached Portishead Medical Group. We had a meeting there for the evening, and we approached them and talked to them. And the doctors there were absolutely, yes, absolutely. This is brilliant. So there's a willingness out there to do it. We just need to go that step further, so to speak. You know, I often like to think that the politics shouldn't be a part of what we're doing, part of the natural environment, climate change issue. Forget the politics, get on with the job. We know what the problems are, but obviously we're ruled by politics, whether it's at local council level, whether it's governmental level. Politics is involved, so we do have to have that dialogue to be able to make effectively that change.
And you've got the tension between some in the farming community as well, and I mean, I think it's a bit of a false tension, but you know, some say there's an ongoing battle. I don't like that word either, between nature conservation, green policies, and then food production at the same time. But I think, you know, and my grandfather was a farmer, my sister lives with one, my uncle was one. I grew up on a small holding, and I don't see that conflict. I genuinely don't, because you work with the grain, right? And actually, farmers are generally quite practical in my mind.
Mhm.
So, you know, when you think back through the history after the Second World War, they were told to up their yields, and here's some chemicals, and they just kind of went, okay. I know we didn't know much then, and I think they'll do the same with the way we're shifting now. You know, if the incentives and the payments for the, you know, environmental land management payments, you know, for, you know, public good shift and are structured in the right way and are suitable, then we'll get that shift in the way they look after the environment.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Ashley. I mean, I'm visiting farmers all the time as a part of what I do.
Yeah.
And, you know, I wouldn't be visiting so many farmers at their request if they were interested. I mean, for what I do, there's no money involved. I'm not from the government department. There's no money involved at all. It's purely that they want to get species back, or they want to help the species that they've got. And there's a real willingness out there from them to do that. So, I mean, I've talked a lot to farmers. One of the things I can tell you they really don't like is when they get slaughtered on social media. So Twitter or X or Facebook or whatever, they'll look at those and they'll say, why are we bothering? And you can't blame them for that. So that's a respect thing. And I think what you said there, Ashley, about them perhaps opening their doors, letting people come in to see what they do is incredibly important, because that will start the respect. Once you've got respect and knowledge, then you have the understanding that goes with it.
Yeah, you do. And I think, I think that's right. It's about a dialogue, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
It really is. And it's so important. I mean, we do need to sort out things like food security and things like that as well. And I think that we're seeing a lot of teething problems in the terms of the, you know, the move away from the basic payments scheme from the EU. But we kind of need to double down and sort it out, really, is my kind of view on it.
We still need our local farmers to do what they do best, which is farm. But at the same time, you know, part of what I do is not interfere with that, but look at areas where creation can take place. And I mean creation as a more wilder landscape. And it's possible to fit that in. So very often I'm dealing with not a blank canvas as such. I'm almost up against the wall. But what they'll say is okay, well, I need to do this because I need to feed my family as well. I respect that absolutely. And so they'll say, but here's where we can start doing things.
Yeah.
And once they start seeing the success of that, it grows. And what I very often get is that one farmer will turn around and say, here, because they talk a bit like that. Here, old Bob next door, seeing what I'm doing, he wants to see you.
Yeah.
We're going to see him. It spreads. The old soapbox way of doing things really does work well. Communications.
Yeah. No, it really does. And I think it's just lots of work to do. And I mean, the other thing I'm hearing is that some, you know, we've got the biodiversity net gain laws as well coming, you know, you're probably familiar with these of house builders and things, and I'm hearing that needs tweaking as well, because what's happening is some of these house builders are just buying up big parcels of farms and then just taking good farmland out of production. And that's kind of, in one way, that's great because it's, you know, biodiversity net gain, but what it's not doing is it's not thinking about which bits of land are best and how do we fit all these things together as like a jigsaw, rather than them just going, oh, we'll just have that bit over there and, you know, to tick our box. So I think that there is so much to do. I mean, it's just
corridors. It needs ways to get around. It hasn't got. You end up with a situation whereby, take a drive, Ashley, go up to the Mendip and you'll see a couple of priority areas up there for wildlife. Then you go down on the levels, you see a huge area of priority where a lot of money's been poured in for nature conservation. Then take the A39 and start heading down towards Minehead. Completely different. Completely different. And what you actually need to do is sprinkle a little bit of the Mendips and the Somerset levels right the way down to Minehead, but incorporating food production with it.
So what's different about going down to Minehead then? You say that's not got...
It's got schemes. Obviously, it's got some government schemes, but you see a completely different, almost like more sterile landscape than, for example, the levels. it doesn't take rocket science to work out where most of the money's gone, so to speak. You can really see where that's happening. And I've always advocated that if we want to see wildlife recovering all over the country, it has to be all over the country. I've always maintained. I got invited. Sorry, I'm speaking too much. But I got invited when we came out of Europe. I got invited to speak to a group of NFU farmers, various other people, and it was basically an after Brexit discussion. And I made no bones about it. I'm pro-European, blah blah blah. But what the heck, we got to move forwards. So the suggestion I made was that instead of having our massive priority areas, that what we do is that first of all, we denationalize the way in which agricultural grants are given out, so they become much more local, so to speak. Yep. And what we do is, if we're talking about, for example, not mowing up to the edges of fields, instead of that only being priority areas, it's everywhere. So everybody does it.
Yeah.
So, and the width of that only changes depending on the size. So the width of the margin that's not managed changes only because of the size of the farm. And the administration of that is done basically by national government giving local authority money, saying, right, you administer it, you inspect it, you watch it, and all the farmers go, whoa, I don't have to speak to somebody at HQ anymore. It's all in the local council office.
You
localize everything. And so, and in that way, I think also that would help the public grasp of it as well, because it would become much more newsworthy in a local. Anyway, that's what I did. That was a long time ago. But there you go. Sorry,
no, I agree, and I think there should be more kind of wildlife corridors, and particularly in the planning system, where they don't really exist at the moment. We've just gone through the local plan. You don't have an obligation, as far as I'm aware, to build a wildlife corridor or have something called, like we have green belt, we don't have wild belt. And green belt, as we know, is actually more to do with stopping urban sprawl than promoting wildlife diversity. And so we need to get that in as well into all our planning rules.
Just going to say, Ashley, talking of planning laws, do you think there is a case to be made to say that all new builds from now, say we have a new parliament, all new builds from this new parliament onwards have to have solar as a prerequisite, that has to be there by default. They all have to have some kind of wildlife feature. So whether or not it's a bat box, it's a swallow box or something, but it's got to be hedgehog gates, exactly. We've got, if we really want to tackle the way nature is in crisis at the moment, and also climate change as well, we've got to grasp, if you pardon the pun, we've got to grasp the nettle and go, right, from this point onwards, this is where everything changes.
Oh no, I agree. I mean, that's Lib Dem policy. I don't know about the wildlife on buildings, but when you talk about solar panels and net zero, passive house standards, that's what's in the manifesto. But I agree, we need to do a lot more, and we're not doing it. And also, they produce better homes and nicer homes for people to live in. One of my things that people don't like housing is, it's not that they don't like housing. What they don't like is a Taylor Wimpey mega estate.
Yeah,
that's what they don't want. And actually, when you talk to most people, and you say you could have a small, bespoke, local builder, passive house development with, and the rest of it, that they're generally okay. And you narrow down the opposition to really what I would call, very, people that just don't want anything. And that makes it much more. And you then taking the public with you. There's just not enough done like it, because the planning standards are just far too low. And we need more flexibility locally to push them up as well. So we're pushing them up at the moment as far as we can in North Somerset, but there's only a little bit that you can do because it's all set within a national planning policy framework.
But isn't part of the problem that we as a nation, we really need to have a look at our attitude towards house building, towards property, and try and wean ourselves off of it being some kind of I try and choose my words carefully here, but some kind of tradable commodity,
Yep.
and actually see them for what they are. They are homes to give people stability and give them a sense of purpose. And when you have, you know, I think Shelter did a survey. I can't remember what the figure is, but it's just the sheer number of empty houses and properties there are in this country, but also the fact that you've got land that has been approved for development, but developers land bank it. And surely land banking should be outlawed, you know.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's the whole model they do, though, don't they? They land bank and then they funnel it back into the market, you know, when they make the most profits, and it makes profitable to build on green spaces. So you are completely reliant on what they want to give you. And the house building market has shrunk from, you know, 10 to 12 main builders to kind of, I think it's 4 or 5 now, isn't it? I mean, they control the market, and you know, and the number of permissions they've got is just, it's just horrendous. I mean, it needs to be broken. I agree with you completely. And I think the idea about the investment's interesting, because this is only my own view, is that I think if anyone makes a bit of money in Britain, don't we all think, oh, I'll buy a property. It's our natural kind of thought, isn't it? But it's actually the wrong thing, because that's someone's home. And if we started thinking, well, I'd invest that money in a business or something like that, then we could all become, you know, more productive and perhaps more wealthy and have more funds to spend on the things we want to do, like nature conservation and the rest of it, not just inflating the property market. It just goes round in circles.
And this is me speaking personally here, but I think the seeds of this turning the property market into a tradable commodity 40 years ago or so, it's what's led us to where we are now, where the people can't get on the property ladder, or we've sold off all the, you know, a lot of the locally owned rented accommodation. We've chased this kind of like, yes, you know, your house will be the source of your fortune, but what we've done is we've sold, I think personally we've sold ourselves short, but that, I will hasten to add, that's just my personal opinion. But
well, we're just not building enough houses. I mean, that's in homes. We shouldn't say houses, we should say homes. We're just not building enough, and that's also driven the price up, isn't it?
But isn't part of that problem is that we're not looking at what we've already got and making sure it's actually being put out there, so that it's actually available, rather than it being bought up by oligarchs and, you know, organizations that purely want to keep property exclusive, so that it makes everything else more proper. I know we're talking about a wildlife show here, and we're talking about property.
It's all connected.
It's all connected. Exactly.
But I think that it knocks on, doesn't it? Because in North Somerset there aren't that many vacant properties. Because I looked into the data, and, you know, we doubled the council tax on them because we want to encourage people to bring them back in. But there's not that many. But it's mainly, like you say, in you know, the tower blocks in the centre of London, or down in St Ives, or it's those places, and they, of course, ripple out, don't they? That's the trouble.
Isn't it down on the south coast where it's had it was on the news a while ago, it's had a devastating effect. Holiday homes has had a devastating effect on more of the winter economy of these, because nobody there. It's just
it hollows out the communities as well, and that's what, you know. And when you hollow out the community, you then get it to a very unsustainable kind of community that just buses everything in for the summer in Range Rovers, and then buses it all out again at the end. And it's not kind of any way in circular in any way whatsoever.
Actually, I'm going to throw a weird question in.
Yep.
And it's just this: if you had the opportunity to be the person that decided a species of the past that used to live here could come back, what would you choose?
Oh, I wouldn't know. I'd have to ask someone on that. I'd have to ask. Can I call phone a friend? Because I'm not an expert on that. I'd have to be honest. You know, I think
the reason why I say it's the talk of the town at the moment. Everybody's talking about bringing species in. There's talk of pine martens being brought back to places like Exmoor and Dartmoor, although we think that they won't affect us here. Yeah. Sorry, yes, it does. White-tailed sea eagle could be released around South Wales, quite close to us, and again, those birds will come across to here. So it's kind of something which is happening all around us, so to speak. And of course, the very famous beavers, all the way from Frome, which are now down into Bristol. They're not that far from you, and they're closer to you than they are to us at the moment. But they are on their way. And the point is, I think, in the case of the beaver, we've already been talking about flooding. There we have something which will actually potentially be extremely good at slowing down fast water movement in various places.
Right.
So if there's a way that we can bring in species that are going to be beneficial to the local environment, I just wonder what you thought. If you got any thoughts towards that, as so many people are talking about this at the moment.
Well, I think it sounds a good idea because you're working with the grain, aren't you?
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't go for something, you know, from South America to bring in, but I mean, I would follow the experts.
We weren't here in any case. Yeah.
You know, and even bringing back things that perhaps haven't been here for 300 or 400 years, I might even question whether that was a good idea. But working with the grain and, you know, nature, we don't see why that doesn't have a problem with that. I don't know. No. I don't know what I'd bring back. I mean, I have no idea. But
well, I've got a list. But I'll go into the list now. But the other thing, of course, is talking about that. We have got species naturally moving up from the south as we warm up. You only have to look to the Somerset levels, and you see species there, which I was seeing on the Camargue 15 years ago.
Right.
And they're now on the levels. Right. And so what we're seeing is quite a natural change taking place in any case. And of course, climate change is, people are talking about it because we've had a very cold spring and they think that climate change has all been postponed, et cetera, et cetera. No, it's all a part of the model. And now we're about to go into a heat wave for, was it 2.5 days? Something like that. And then
yes, summer's here.
Summer's here, there it goes, bye. But ways of minimizing that effect of the climate on us and on agriculture and on wildlife as well are things that I think we should be future-proofing.
Yeah, I agree. Completely agree.
Chris, just to cut in there for a second, you were talking about reintroduction of species. I don't know if I think you must have seen this on the news today about captive bred wildcats in Scotland actually now breeding in the wild, that's quite a development, because that's obviously what everybody hoped for when this was being mooted.
Local, Jonathan.
We're talking about no, this is up in Scotland, but we're talking about the reintroduction of species.
Yes.
And I know you just mentioned the fact that beavers are working their way, towards North Somerset. Again, the reintroduction of the beaver into our, which was controversial at the time, but hopefully it's started to settle down a bit now that people, as you say, they can see the benefits of it in terms of how beavers are nature's natural ecologists. They're natural land management creatures, because ironically the things they like are actually quite beneficial for us as well. So,
well, I used to joke about the Bristol Road and Lydgate Place flooding and say they should do what the Americans did in the 1950s where they had a flooding incident because they'd hunted so many American beavers, which is different to our beaver, because they'd hunted so many out. They used to parachute them in.
Yes.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. I can show you the pictures.
Wasn't there a Bill Murray film, something like that? There was, there was a film made about it anyway.
You're thinking Groundhog Day.
That's great, wasn't it?
That's great. Love that movie.
Yeah.
So what would be the things that I mean, I suppose I'd ask you the question. I mean, one of the people you're interviewing is going to be the next MP. What would be the thing that you would say to that person? So if they got elected and they thought, crikey, I need to do something environmental, right? Because this is the way politics works. You just have 5,000 things rush at you. What would be the thing you'd say, that one, get that done?
I think the most important thing would be the ability for us to sit around a table, talk, and come up with a plan. I mean, you know the ethos of Wild Portishead. I'll say it again, I've been saying it all the time, but the ethos of Wild Portishead is basically ground-up approach.
Yeah.
So the people leading. So most conservation projects, if we're honest, they tend to be 3-year projects. And then they come to an end, and then they're replaced by something else, or they're done with. So the way I see longevity within a project is that you get the public involved, and you you get a groundswell of the public actually delivering that project, so to speak. For me, it's the only way forward. You also then, if you go out to our communities, and we actually get our communities inspired to do something. Our communities are the ones that, not casting aspersions here at people, but they're the ones that, for example, on a Friday night, will go down the local pub in the village, and they'll meet the farmer there saying, "Yeah, we're doing a project on wildlife. Any chance you could help out with this? We need a bit of land, a little bit of." That's how you get things going. So the soapbox, Ash, and so those are the type of things that I would. If we had the opportunity, if you got in, we sat around a table, I would start saying, right, let's look at all the communities that we've got and look at what we can do within them. And that's the whole ethos about how we started here.
Yeah.
It basically ground up as opposed to top-down imposed.
I don't think top-down imposed works, is my view. I mean, and that's part of my politics. I'm ground up. I think what you do need is you need the support of the up when the ground starts. Does that make sense? So I think the one that comes to mind is the golf course in Portishead. You probably know that's gone back into village green status, and I think they've been campaigning on that for years. But I was lucky to be in the right place to give them the lever into the council to get that going. And I think you have to have it kind of working together, but it has to start with the community, though.
Well, funny you say that, the golf course, because one of the things that one of the recent developments was North Somerset Council taking Slade Road Field off the development list. Yes, because we campaigned for that for years, and
Jonathan, I'm stopping you there. It was your baby, mate. It was your
baby. No. It was something that quite a lot of people campaigned on. So fingers crossed. What we're now hoping is, the field is being left to do its thing for the breeding season. Then once that's done, we can start looking at it and saying we can do things here. I know one of the things I'm very keen on down there is community orchard, because you've got that natural slope, and at the bottom, the natural slope is where the water runoff is perfect for a community orchard. So and Ashley, we are Somerset. We are the county of apple trees. And we've had some community-based initiatives in the town which have been brilliant. You've had Welly Bottom. We've had a couple of others as well. But frankly, we need more community orchards in this town. And that's my personal kind of thing anyway. But I'm
pleased. I mean, I was kind of, because I was in the cabinet of the council, as you probably know, for 4 years, and I was worried about Slade Road, but also worried about housing. So I actually came and met Paul Gardner, which I'm sure you know, Paul. and we just kind of met him privately, and we had a walk round because, you know, we have to balance. We need homes,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it was pretty clear as soon as I walked round where my heart lied. It wasn't for housing on that site. You know, it was pretty obvious as soon as you saw it.
Mm-hmm.
It will end up as something that wildlife can use and people can use.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
two things can come together.
Yeah.
There is a corridor there, Ashley, which is that the fact that you've got that just above there, you've got the Portishead Town Council playground.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
They've kept the woodland going.
Yeah.
They have. Yeah.
So a line of trees which goes out towards what we call locally Chicken's Path.
Mm-hmm.
Another line of trees which goes around up to Four Hill.
Mm-hmm.
Keep going with that line of trees, you're just short of Western Bigwood.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's an amazing corridor. I quite often do bat detecting along there.
Right. Okay.
You can actually see the bats using this corridor constantly. It's wonderful.
It kind of comes back to the point you were saying earlier about people being in touch with nature, doesn't it? Because if it's on their doorstep and they're walking through it and they're seeing it, they feel much more connected to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I think the bizarre thing is that we know the British public. We know the British public like their nature and they like their wildlife through the popularity of a lot of the programming that the BBC does. You know, you've got shows like you know, Spring Watch and Winter Watch. You've got the Attenborough shows. We know the British public have an appetite for the natural environment. It's just but there's still a bit of a disconnect somewhere, and I think it's that thing of they see it as something on television, but then don't realise it's actually happening on their doorstep. You know,
I think this is where this can help, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And you know, there's quite a few apps around. The one I use, iNaturalist.
Yep.
You literally point you take a picture of something and it'll identify it for you. Stick your phone on if there's a bird singing and it'll identify that.
Yeah.
So it'll do insects, it'll do plants, it'll do fungus, lichen. Should have used it at Stonehenge the other day, shouldn't I? And basically what it'll do then is plonk that on a map and you'll see exactly where your sightings are. So you're recording everything in your own local area. We have our own bit of this, don't we, in Wild Portishead? Bit of iNaturalist.
We do.
Anybody that records anything in Portishead goes up onto our map of iNaturalist.
Okay.
Oh, he's going to show us.
Yes.
That was quick, Jonathan.
Well, I'd anticipated that we might do this, but what we're going to do is we will do a future show where we will do this live and actually show people how to use iNaturalist. So it's one of the things we've got in the pipeline. But yeah.
But I mean, that goes up to a national database. And so it's not a wasted record. Your record is timed, dated, and where you are, your GPS. So it's a bona fide record. Anybody can do it.
Yeah, we are sadly running out of time. Ash, I'm not going to gotcha you here, but I understand there is a general election hustings at Gordano School tomorrow night.
It's tomorrow night at 7:30, which has been on the same day as the football.
Right.
But it was going to be last night, but I think Liam Fox couldn't make last night or something, so it was moved. So I don't know how many people will be there.
Yeah, but there it is. It's the general election hustings, Tuesday, the 25th of June, 7:30 p.m. Gordano School Hall. Chris, I'm afraid we're out of time.
Yes, 55.
I apologise.
55 minutes. Well done, Ashley.
Yeah, well done. Absolutely brilliant.
And you know so much. And in the event I do get elected, I shall be knocking on your door. It's for sure. Even if it's just to ask what extinct species I need to bring back.
Tyrannosaurus Rex, I think.
Maybe not extinct ones. That's probably the wrong thing.
We're getting.
We've had Megalosaur here.
We're getting a bit Jurassic Park now, Chris. A big thank you to Ashley for joining us this evening. Chris, we will be doing another live show soon, won't we? Because, like I say, I want to go through showing people how to use iNaturalist, and we've got other things and whatnot. And we will point this out. We have put the offer out to the other 2 candidates on the election hustings to come on the show, but we are waiting for replies from them. And at the moment, it's tumbleweed. So if they, the offer is there. So
we should use this opportunity, actually, Jonathan, in case this is the last one, to say thank you very much to everybody that's on the show. It's been really, really great. Good fun, good conversation.
Absolutely.
And from good conversation, obviously, things get done.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Big thank you to Ashley for joining us tonight. Chris, thank you as well. Like I say, we will be doing another live show very, very soon. And we'll probably talk about trail cams again and other bits and pieces. Until the next... Oh, Chris, incidentally, do you want to?
It's coming out in August, and we'll talk about it in more detail on another show, but it's coming out in August, and late August now, I'm told. I'm just going through the proofing at the moment, and once all that's done, it'll be out. But it's available for pre-order now, and it's climbing up the Amazon pre-order charts.
Excellent. Well, what we're hoping to do is try and get some of the authors on a Wild Portishead live as well. So I think that would be interesting to do as well. Yeah. Definitely going now. Big thank you to Ashley. Thank you, Chris. And we'll be back very, very soon. So until the next time, take care and get out there and enjoy some nature. Bye-bye.